takes more than being online to be a great online university. It takes time and experience. University of New England pioneered distance education in the 1950s and has been perfecting it ever since. With features like 24/7 tutor access, we're now rated #1 for teaching quality and support, and the only public university in Australia to receive a 5-star rating 14 years running. So, for an expert online education, choose UNE.
So, hello Jessie, thank you for agreeing to be in Law 499. Can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Sure. So my name's Jessie Porteus. I've been a lawyer for close to a decade now and have had experiences in a range of different areas. I'm currently an in-house lawyer at a big ASX-listed company, and I also run a legal training company called The Learned Crew, which is designed to help the next generation of lawyers for the real world of law. But I've also experienced private practice. I've been a judge's associate. I've worked in community legal centres. So I've had a wide variety of careers and experiences.
Oh, thank you, Jessie. That sounds great, and we're looking forward to hearing your answers to our various questions. So asking the first question is, what do you see as the crucial legal issues with the developments or innovations in new technologies?
I think this has probably been said before, but I think in terms of legal issues, the obvious ones are privacy, data, ethics, and decision making. But it really depends on the technology in question that we're talking about. For example, let's take the idea of technology that might help a judge in a court make the right decision, and maybe they need to use technology to sort through hundreds of years of precedents and decisions to be able to come to the right legal decision. While technology could help provide a very helpful role in analysing those judicial decisions of years past, in this specific example, and this would save a judge a lot of time in looking at those precedents and helping to read those cases. You've got to consider the ethical and contextual factors that led to those decisions. How would you code for those? So, for example, a decision made in 1920 is going to have very different political and contextual factors that helped to make that decision, as opposed to a very different time in 2020. So a decision would need to be considered in light of that time. So, a judge would maybe use technology to look through those decisions, but ultimately to make the right and ethical decision, they've got to consider the circumstances occurring right now. So that's just one example of one technology that you might think about ethics and decision making being a real interesting factor there and issue. At the outset, I should say that I think technology innovation that's coming out at the moment is absolutely phenomenal, and it can do a lot of good in the world and particularly help humans do their jobs better, especially for lawyers, when AI and legal tech can truly take away some of the previously labour-intensive jobs that allow us to do real high-value work. But I think that it's very interesting the ethical and decision-making issues that arise out of those technologies, if that's in fact what the technologies are designed to do.
Thanks, Jessie. I think that leads naturally to actually my second question, which is a little bit more specific around what you see as some of the common legal issues with particular tech areas. In particular, do you want to expand a little bit more around big data and artificial intelligence, particularly, of course, in the role as an in-house counsel of a large entity, where assumes those sort of factors play a big role. So what are some of the legal issues wrapping around there? And also, I know you've been pretty active on social media, particularly through the Learned Crew. And what are some of the legal issues you see, particularly for young lawyers, around that as well? Maybe you're welcome, by the way, to include some others as well.
Yep. I think AI is a really interesting one, and I just touched on an example with AI that might help a judge make a decision. Equally, in-house or any lawyers who are reviewing contracts at the moment, for example, in the current climate of COVID-19, a piece of technology might be able to look over all of your suite of contracts. You might have a range of signed contracts that you need to review, and perhaps they are all being affected by COVID-19, you know, suppliers, customers, counterparties that are unable to perform their obligations due to, say, a force majeure event. And for those law students who have done contract law, you might have learned about force majeure clauses. If there was, say, an AI technology that was able to look over those contracts, the decision that it might reach, looking at the terms of the contract only, is, okay, there's a force majeure event, we can suspend obligations and possibly terminate. That might be the legal answer that's spat out at the end. But then we've got to consider, what are the other contextual issues? What are the ethical things we need to consider? And is that legal answer necessarily the right answer? If a human lawyer looks at these suite of contracts, they might decide, well, okay, yeah, we could probably terminate, or we could probably do this or that. But the right answer might be, let's meet to negotiate and come up with a better result for all parties involved. Or there might be some other relationship or other contract that is not even connected to this one that might have an impact on that decision. So how can you code for that? So there's some interesting issues that arise when we use artificial intelligence or those kinds of technologies, where the outcome provided might not necessarily be the right outcome when you consider on a human level and on an ethical level whether it's the right decision.
Yeah, absolutely. And would you like to expand a little bit on social media, how that falls in, both from your learning crew and also your day job as in-house counsel?
Yeah, I mean, social media is interesting. It's kind of, in terms of the slow burn of giving away our personal data, which is really interesting. And if anyone has read the book 21 Lessons for the 21st Century by Yuval Noah Harari, and if you haven't, please read it. Although it's interesting to read it in the context of COVID-19, it's even more depressing of a book. But he talks about the slow giving away of our own personal data. And we know that we do that for the convenience, either through social media, through looking at websites, accepting cookies, accepting T's and C's, probably without looking at them. And that slow giving away of our personal data might have huge implications down the track. Now, Yuval Harari in this book, he indicates that in the future, and maybe this is on your next question, Michael, but that the merge of technology and biotechnology is an interesting issue that might come up. And that's where, currently we're giving away some of our personal data, but in the future with biotechnology, maybe there's a possibility of giving away our own biochemical structure. And Mr. Harari in his book suggests that in the future we might have some kind of device connected or through our bodies where it might detect some cell multiplication which might indicate the first stages of cancer. And that immediately when our body registers it, it sends some signal to to a doctor or a medical company that goes, I know exactly what medicine to administer, and it goes straight back in. Now, I know this might sound a bit crazy, and I do recommend that you read the book, but this is an interesting step away from what we currently do for the convenience of, well, I'd like to be advertise the products that I'm interested in on social media. But it's an interesting question that he poses, an interesting scenario that he poses about how that might look down the track when we start giving away rights to our bodies, not just our eyes as advertising receptacles. Yes,
Jessie, I can assure you, in fact, last year we had an honours student do her LLB honours, and it was looking at when an insurance company or health company provides a free Fitbit, and that data is then handed back so they can work out whether you've got high blood pressure, whether you're exercising, and then change your premium. So dare I say, some of those issues are already in play, but the idea of it being part of nanotechnology where it's actually inside your body and communicating is that whole next step. That leads beautifully to my third and final question, which is, what do you see over the next 5 to 10 years are going to be the biggest legal issues in respect of technology?
So I think I'm going to take a bit of a different lens, because I think in terms of what I do with my business, in terms of helping law students with their future, I was thinking of taking a bit of a different take and talking about how these emerging technologies can actually change the skills that are required by our future lawyers. So, we know that there's a lot of tech out there that will help do some of our jobs in the future. And I'm sure that a lot of law students have heard the scary side of that, which is, robots are going to take your jobs. And what I want to say is that I don't think that's the case. And as long as we are adaptable with our skills, and that we use our curiosity and comfort with those technologies, we'll be able to really use that to our advantage. So I think that this lends itself to a discussion about what lawyers will need to look like in the future. And I think I've got a bit of a list of skills that I think could be great thought provokers for law students out there. So firstly, I think it goes without saying we need to be adaptable. I've heard that AQ is the new EQ, so that's adaptability quotient. The whole Darwin's theory of survival of the fittest, but those that change and adapt to their scenario and their environment will be the best place to survive. So your ability to adapt, change, be agile, accept new technologies, learn them, master them, and be those digital natives that you are in terms of providing benefits to the organisations that you ultimately work for is going to be incredibly important. On that point, being flexible and being able to flex with these different arrangements and technologies, so that you're in the best position for success in your future as a lawyer, if you choose to be a lawyer. This also applies to any profession. So if you don't want to be a lawyer at the end of your law degree, these will be totally transferable skills in those contexts. I think your ability to be strategic. So like I said before, with the example of that contract where the legal answer might be terminate the contract, but the strategic answer might be no, let's negotiate and make this better for both of us. Those skills will be really important. Being empathetic and personable and humble and creative, and using those human skills will allow you to really step above the noise and be able to not just focus on the labour intensive document review or reading of cases, but you're actually able to take that and move it into a real personal, empathetic answer, which doesn't just take into account the legal issues, but takes into account the ethical issues and is this right? Or be able to use those answers that might come out of some kind of technology to be able to come up with a real creative strategy for your client on how to work forward or to move forward. To be commercial, have a business mindset, understand design thinking principles, foster positive change for the people that you work with and the communities that you work within, your leadership, your communication. I mean, being able to connect with people, especially in light of at the moment where we can't physically be with each other, to be able to connect with people on a genuine and human level will be even more important as we move into the 20s and beyond. And all of that on top of being fantastic technical lawyers or fantastic professionals in whatever field you choose. I think that having a love of continuous learning and an improvement will allow you to really be successful in the future.
Thank you, Jessie. There's some great insights and thoughts. Really appreciate your time today.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for asking me. Good luck, everybody.